Hello and welcome to yet another video of our series. And in this video, we'll be talking about string functions. We'll go through multiple ways that we can use string functions to manipulate our data. And we'll talk a lot about different types of string functions to manipulate data, things like concat. We'll talk about left, we'll talk about right. We'll go into len, we'll talk about replace, replicate, substring, char index, upper and lower functions. Then stick around at the end of the video. I'm going to walk through a really complex, but I will make it as easy as possible on how these functions can be very, very powerful when we bring them all together. So stick around to the end of the video because there's a lot of good information that will be coming out of this. So without further ado, let's go into the video and we'll talk about the string function. So as usual, in our in our in our writing of our SQL code, at the top of the video, we always want to put or indicate the database that we will be writing our queries from. So it is a good practice again. Remember, the good practice is that anybody who watch your code can easily have an idea what database to run that particular code or those tables. So if I come to the top and I use this word that says use, I will call the database name and follow by just putting go just to show that this is the session, sorry, the batch. And if I run it, I can see it's telling me that the code is successful. So let's start with the first thing that we have to do, concat. The concat is used to combine strings together. Again, the concat is used to combine strings together. So for example, if I have a column, I have a column, let me just put a comment. I have a column 1 and I have another column 2. And in this column, sorry, column 2, and in this column, I have a name called team, and I have another name on the second column called Mike. I can use concat to combine these two columns in order to bring these two informations, Mike and team and Mike, together as one. Remember, in our databases, our first name and last name are always in different columns. So for us to bring it together as a full name, we can use a concat. So let's use that idea, use that concept, and answer various kind of questions that leads to us using this particular function. Right here, we have a question that said we should write a query that will retrieve the first name and the last name, the phone number and email address from the patient table. But now they said after I've done that, I should create a derived column called full name that will combine the first name and the last name. So with this, the first thing I will do, I will write my select star first of all to gain access to the table. And once I am able to gain access to the table, I will be able to now understand how the table is structured. So if I run this and run this query, I can see that I have my data set. And you can see that the data set now is a little bit visible. I got a feedback that the result is not well seen in like a smaller device. So I had to reset all this to get to this point. So I can see in this table or this result set, I have a first name, last name, the phone number, and the email address that they are looking for. They don't want me to return all the results set from this table. So what I will do, I will format my code in a proper manner, and I will call the first name. I will call the last name. I will call the phone number, and I will call the email address. So when I get this and I run it, this is the subset of the records that they want me to return. So far, so good. But that is not all they want. They now want me to add a derived column called full name that will combine the first name and the last name. Now, we already talked about what the concat function does. The concat function is used to combine multiple strings together. So I will come down here and I will call the concat function. I will open and close the parentheses because it is a function. Then I will give it the name called full underscore name. Now, inside of here, I need to put my argument. Remember, anything that goes inside of a function in the open and close parentheses is called an argument. So I come down, if I hover around my cursor here, I will see a tooltip that pops up that says this function requires at least two arguments. It takes more than two, but it requires at least two arguments. So the first thing I will do, I'll call the first name, comma, and I'll call the last name. That is the syntax for the function. You list one item at a time, followed by a comma until you get to the end one, or the last column that you want to supply as your combination. You do not need to put a comma at the end. So now if I run this code now, I will see that I got something close to what looks like a full name. But I have to be constructive. I need to be creative in how I present my results to my audience, because this result is not suitable for any human to understand that this is a full name. So we can be a little bit creative. That means if I can put a space in between the first name and the last name for all the names, it will look a little bit user friendly. So I come down here at the end of this, because this is a string and this is a string. An empty string is a space. So I can come down after the comma, I put a single quote, put a space, put another single quote, and put a comma. So this is a string with something in it, and this is a string without anything in it, and this is another string. And now if I run this guy, I can see that I have a column, a derived column called full name. So far, so good. And this function can be used in any situation. Anything you want to combine, you can use them. Right. Let's move on to the left function. The left function is used to return everything, start everything from the left, beginning from the left up to the specific number that I supply. For example, if I have a name like this, if I have a name like this, and I have the desire of extracting this particular letters from this name, which is the first three letters, first three. I can write a function that looks like this. I say left. I can look, so the function will look like this, left. I will open and close the parentheses. I will call the strings of interest, which is this guy in this particular situation. Then I put 3. What did I tell the function to do here? I told the function to go from the left and count 3 and extract it. So what the left function actually do is that it extract a substring from a string up to the number of times that I want it. So it will go from the left and pick 3 and return it. If I want more, if I add the number of time I put the number, it will pick from the left and return it. So with that idea, let's see what we do with this particular question. This question said we should write a function. We should write a query to retrieve the patient first name, the last name, their phone number from the patient table. Then we should create a derived column called the first 3. And this first 3 should extract the first 3 numbers of the phone number. first three numbers of the phone number. But we're not going to know how it is doing until we actually go into the code. So the first thing first, we write our select star from our DBO table dot the patient table. And if I run this code now, I can see that I have the first name, the last name that they're looking for, and the patient's phone number. So with this, they don't need the entire record based on the question. They do not need me to return the entire record. They only need me to return this guy, and also this guy. These four information are what they want me to return, just these three. So with that, I can come down to my code, format it in a user-friendly manner. I call the first name, I call the last name, and I call the phone number. With this is the actual data that they want me to extract from the table. And they told me that the moment I extract that information from the table, the next thing that I should do, I should create a derived column called the first three. And this first three should extract the first three letters or the first three numbers of the patient number. So for example, if I check the result again, this particular phone number, the first three is 555. Same thing for this guy. Almost all of them is 555. So that is what we want to see on a new column called first three. So I can come down here and call my left function. I will open and close my parentheses, and I will give it the name that says first three. So far, so good. And if I hover around it, I will see that it says it requires only two arguments. The first argument is the string that we want to extract something out of. And that string is the phone number, comma. And now, up to how many do I want to pick something from the left? I want to pick up to three. I want to extract up to three from that particular phone number from the left. And if I run this, I now have a new column that I derived called first three, and it has the first three of the phone numbers. So far, so good. All right. Let's talk about the right. The right is the opposite of the left. So the left would take will extract something from the left up to the number of time that I need, while the right will extract the string from the right up to the specific number that I need. So with that, they ask us now to do almost the same thing, but we want to get the last four of the phone number. So I'm going to borrow this code because it is exactly the same thing. But this time, if I look at the result of this guy, for example, the last four of this number is 4567. The last four of this number is 6543. So on and so forth. I just need the last four. So I will take this guy off and rerun this code to start from this point. And from this point that I am about to start, all I need is to create another column called last four. This last four is going to return or extract the last four of each phone number. So I can come down to this guy and call the right function. I will open and close my parentheses, and I will call it the last four, which is this guy. I copied it and pasted it here just in case you're wondering how come I did it so fast. I just copied it and pasted. Then now inside of it, the syntax is the same thing. I call the phone number as my first argument and call four because I want to extract the last four. And when I run this number now, I can see that I have an extra column called the last four that extract the last four digits of the phone number, which is this particular column. So far, so good. Now, the len. What does the len does? The len is used to count the number of characters in a particular string. For example, if I have this string here, you put this. If I have this string here and I want to count it, the string will count this function, these characters, and return 8. Or if I have this string here, the string will count. This is how the string will count it. The len will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It also counts space 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. I think it's 13. It's 13. So it also counts the space. So it's used to count the length of a string. And again, this is the point I will pause and let you know that these functions individually by themselves, they don't make sense. You begin to wonder what do you want this kind of function for? What do you use it for? It doesn't make sense. But when you begin to use them alongside other functions, then they begin to come together and begin to give you that complexity, and they begin to solve a lot of problems. So don't worry about it. Towards the end piece of the video, we'll be doing a lot of exercise that involve we nesting the functions. So without further ado, if I come down here now, I want to answer this question that says, write a query to retrieve the procedure date, procedure description, the pre and the post instructions from the procedure table. Then they want me to create a derived column called dixlen that will count the length of procedure descriptions from that particular table. So let's do the first thing first. We'll do the first thing first, which is select star from. We do the DBO dot. We call our procedure table, procedure table, procedure table. And this is a procedure. Remember, procedure is something in SQL. So I can come down here and now run this guy. When I do, I can see this data. They don't want me to return the entire data set. All that they want me to do is the procedure date, procedure description, the pre-operative instruction, and the post-operative instruction. So with that, I can come down here and format my code properly and begin to put the information that they want me to put. They say they need procedure date. They said they need the procedure description. They told me to return the pre-operative instruction and the post-operative instruction. So with this, I can select and run this guy. This is the subset of the record that they want me to return. But now they want me to have another column called this length, which I would derive the information inside of it. And that that they want me to derive, they want me to count the description, the length of the procedure description. So this is the procedure description. They want me to count each individual characters and report them in a column called this length. So I'm going to copy this so that I don't keep typing it. When I can see it, I put a comma on my last column. And at this point here, I call that function called length. I open and close, and I give it a name called length. Now, what do they want me to let this function? So if I overrun this function, I can see it takes exactly one argument. And what they want me to count, they want me to count the procedure description. With that, if I run the code now, I can see that I have a new column called this length that goes into this individual column, into individual items and count them. And I can see that this MIR scan have 8 particular string, 8 strings in it. And if you see physically it is 5, but because it counted the space, it gives us 8. So far, so good. We're making progress. Let's take a look at the replace function. The replace function is used to replace anything that is a string. We can replace a substring from a string with another string. For example, if I have um, if I have a word like this, say walk space through, and I want to change this guy to walk dash through, I can do it using a replace. Anything, any substring that I want to change from a string, I can easily change it. So for example, this question here said we should write a query that will retrieve the insurance provider, the insurance policy, the insurance policy number, and insurance expiry date from the insurance table. Then we should create a derived column called insprov underscore update that will replace the spaces on the insurance provider with a dash. So let's first of all go into the table and see how the table is behaving. Our first line of action is to write our select star dbo dot insurance. And if we run it, we can see that we have various information, but they don't want us to return all the information. They only want to return this 3 from this table. So with that, it is for me to go in and only extract that information that they're looking for, which is insurance provider, which is insurance policy number, and insurance expire date. So when I come down, this is the only subset of record that they want. But after that, they want me to do another thing, create a derived column called this, and they want me to replace all the spaces in the insurance provider with a dash. So this is insurance provider. All the spaces inside of this, so this guy have XYZ space insurance, they want to put a dash in it. So they want me to put it all this information onto a new information called this guy, but with dash and not space on here. I can come down here and I say replace, and I will open and close the parentheses. And at this point, I will give it a name. And this name that I will give it is a name that will guide me to understand that this is a column name. So at this point, if I hover around this function, I can see it says it requires 3 arguments. The first argument it takes is going to be the first argument it takes is going to be the actual string. And the second argument is the string that I intend to replace from that actual string. And the third argument is what do I want to replace that actual string with. So this is how it works. Inside of this, my first information that I want to check is the insurance provider. That is my string, comma. In that string, what do I want to replace? I want to replace a space, comma. What do I want to replace the space with? I want to replace the space with a dash. And if I run the code, I can see that I have a new column called insure prov. So basically insurance provider update, and that will have a space replaced with a dash. And I can see that field here. So far, so good. Replicate. The replicate function is just used to replicate replicate things multiple times. For example, if I have this name and I want to replicate it 5 times. I can use the replicate function and generate it to replace it 5 times. Something like that. Or if I want to replicate an asterisk, I can use the function. If I want to replicate an asterisk 10 times, I can use the replicate function and replicate this thing 10 times. So there's a lot of benefits to all these things. So let's just do the replicate function. I'm not going to use I'm not going to use pull it from a table because it doesn't exist in a table. So I can just write a simple select statement just to show proof. So the simple select statement that says replicate. I say replicate. I will open and close the parentheses. And if I hover around this replicate function, I can see that the replicate says I can replicate. It requires 2 arguments. The arguments is the first one is the string that I want to replicate. So I want to replicate an asterisk. And that asterisk that I want to replicate, how many times do I want to replicate it? I want to replicate it 10 times. And when I do that and write it, I can see that I generated a string 10 different times. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about substring. So the substrings is used to extract a substring from a string. The substring function is used to extract a substring from a string. For example, if I have a string that looks like this, John, and I want to extract, no, sorry, no, not that. And I want to extract this name from that name, I can use a substring because this guy is a substring of this entire guy. Or if I want to extract JON from this guy is a substring from this guy. So we can use the substring to extract a substring from a string. So with that, let's use that idea to answer this question. We want to write a query to retrieve the insurance provider, the insurance policy number from the insurance table. Then we want to create a derived column called insurance provider extract that will extract the first 3 words from the insurance provider. The first 3 words from the insurance provider. So that looks like this same table that we have. So I can borrow this guy and get to the point where they want me to return the provider and policy information. So this is the only place I want to start. So if I run it, I have met the first piece of the requirement to retrieve insurance provider and the policy number. But now they want me to write a derived column called insurance provider extract that will extract the first 3 words from the insurance table. So the first 3 words from the insurance provider. So if I come down here, I can call something called substring. I will open and close the parentheses. And if I hover around this function, I can see that it says it requires 3 arguments. The first argument is my actual string. The second argument is my starting position. The third argument is my length from my starting position. So if I come down here, I call my my first argument, which is my string, insurance provider, and they said they want the first 3 words. My starting position will be from 1 because if I have this guy, the first 3 words is XYZ. If I have this guy, the first 3 words is ABC. So I want to start from 1 and the last argument is the length that I want to go from the starting position. I want to go from my position, my starting position, I want to go 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And this guy is called insurance extract. So if I run this query, I can see that I have a column called this guy, and I am able to extract this information from here to here. So far, so good. We are making progress. So the char index. You see how I counted? I have to count for me to get this number. But I can use the char index to find the position of what I am looking for. So for example, if I have a string called United, I have a string called United States, and I want to extract United from it. Or let me take extract off. I want to find this space inside of this entire word without me counting it by myself. I can use the char index and find this space, and the char index will return the position of that space. For example, the char index will go and count it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the char index will tell me that the space inside of United States is 7. So it returns the position of a particular substring that I supply to it. So with that, let's see how we can use char index and answer this question. Write a query to retrieve the street address, the city, and the postal code from the address table. And then create a derived column called position of space that will retrieve the space of a given, that will retrieve the space, or it says the first space, that will retrieve the first space from the street address. So to do that, I can come down here and I say select star from, and I want to call dbo dot address table. So when I run this code, I can see and have an idea. But the good thing is that they do not want me to return the entire record. They want me to return a subset of the records, which is the street address, the city, and the postal code. So I can come down here and say, I want to call the street address. I want to get the city. I want to get the postal code. Now, when I do that and run this query, I can see the 3 fields that they are interested in. They do not want the whole thing. So from here now, they said I should create a derived column called position of space that will retrieve the first space in the street address. So for example, I want to retrieve the first space here, the first space here, the very first space here, the first space here, and so on and so forth. To do that, I can come down here and call a function called char index. I will open and close the parentheses, and I will call the guy, it is called position of space. And if I look through this function and I hover around it, it tells me that it takes 2 to 3 arguments. So I only do the 2 arguments, and the first argument is the particular string that I am looking for. The string that I am looking for is a space. So it's an empty string, comma. And where am I looking for this empty string? I am looking for this empty string in the street address. And if I run it now, I can see that it's telling me that the space for this guy is 6, the space for this one is 4, the space for this one is 2, and it is 2 because it counted one string and find the next string, which is space, and make it 2. Again, each one of these functions individually, they are not useful. But we're going to be having a very in-depth usage of these particular functions, all of them, at least almost all of them, to bring them into reality of how useful they are. So stick around, don't get bored, but all this is breaking down the functions by themselves. So now the next thing that we need to do is the uppercase. The uppercase and the lowercase is just used to convert our string. We transform the string. We transform it from a lowercase to an uppercase. All our functions, we can transform it from a lower to an upper, or whatever form that they are, we can transform it into an uppercase, or we can transform it into a lowercase. So with that, we can answer this question that says, write a query to retrieve the diagnosis description, diagnosis code, diagnosis name from the diagnosis table. Then they want me to create a derived column called the diagnosis description upper, which means that I will convert all the diagnosis description to an uppercase. So first thing first, we first of all select our star from our DBO dot diagnosis table. So when I run the code, I can see that there is a lot of information that is here. But the good thing is that they are not looking for me to return all the columns. They are looking for me to return a subset of the columns. And those columns that they want me to return is the diagnosis description. They want me to return the diagnosis code. And they want me to return the diagnosis name. So with this, I'm just going to dress this guy to make it look user-friendly. Then this is what they want me to return, and I can run this code. I can see the diagnosis description, common code, the code is JOO, and the viral upper respiratory infection. Then what they are looking for me to get is that I should write a derived column that will convert all the description to an uppercase. And to do that, all I just need to do is to call the upper. I open and close a parenthesis. I will call the function a name called the diagnosis description upper. Then inside of here, if I hover around it, I can see that it takes exactly one argument. And that argument is the column that they want me, or the string that they want me to transform, and they want me to transform the diagnosis description to an uppercase. I can come down here now and run it. I can see that all the diagnosis description have been converted to all uppercases. Same thing for the lowercase. So if I copy this guy, I think they are the same thing. If I copy this guy, I just want to convert the lowercase. Said we should do the same thing as the uppercase, but this time we call it the diagnosis name lower, and we want to convert the diagnosis names to lowercase. So if I come down here, I'll borrow this code from the previous example, but this is where I want to start from. If I run this guy now, I can see that the diagnosis name is what they want me to convert to all lower cases. Because I only copy this code to this. I copy this code to this place because it is the same table, the same item, it's just different assignment. So they want me to create a derived column called diagnosis name lower that will convert the diagnosis name. So I can come down here, I call the function called lower, I will open and close, and I will give it a name right away. I copied the name already from here. And I come down to the function, and if I hover around it, it takes exactly one argument. And the argument it takes in this situation is the diagnosis name. And once I have the diagnosis name, I can run it, and I can see that the diagnosis name has all been converted to lower cases. All right. So that brings us to the end of these individual functions, but we want to actually put this into reality. And this reality is that we want to use them in a nested format, in a nested form, where we're using the whole, almost everything that we have talked about. We want to bring them all together and begin to use them how they are mostly used in the real world. So, for example, we have a problem here that said we should write a query that will retrieve the first name, the email address, and the emergency contact from the patient table. Then we should write the derived column called email domain that will extract all the characters before the at symbol. For example, let's go into the table first so that we can get a better feeling of what it is saying. Then I can give you some kind of example. Dot, they said, what table again? Patient table. So if I run this code now, what they are telling me to return is that in this particular, listen, if I have an email that looks like this, they want me to transform this record into a new column called email domain that will only extract these first words before the email, before the at symbol. That is what they are looking for me to do. So in this case, I will first of all get all that they are looking for: the first name. They want me to return the email address, and they want me to return the emergency contact. Emergency contact. So with this is the column that they're looking for me to return. So if I run this guy, I can see this is the information that they are looking for me to return in this particular question. But they want me to create a derived column called email domain that will extract all the first word before the at symbol. It's very simple. The first thing I would do, I would take it a baby step to bring everything together. So, for example, the first thing I would do is to find the position of this at sign. I can do that with the function called char index. I will open and close the parenthesis. And inside of this, I want to find the position of the char index, comma, and where am I looking for this char index? This char index, I am looking for it in the email address column. I can just give this guy a name called as position of space. First thing first, I will take it baby step because the result will guide me. Now, I know where this at sign is. So with this, I can either use a left function or I can use a substring. Because now I will not be counting the position, I already know them. So I can come down here, I'll use a left function, say left, I will open and close the parenthesis, and the function, the name that they want me to call it, I'm going to copy it. It says call it as email domain. Now, remember the example of the left function. Let me go all the way, take the pen and go all the way to the back and see what the left function said. It says the string that I am looking for, which is the email, which is the phone in these circumstances, up to from the left up to 3. So down here, if I come using this example, I call the email address, comma. The number now, I am not going to count it because if I look at it, they are not the same. The @ sign doesn't appear in the same position. So I have to make it dynamic. Now, the dynamic is that I cannot hard code an information here, but I have something that is giving me different numbers. So with that, that thing that is giving me those different numbers, which is this function, I will copy it. If, for example, the left function here, when I hard coded an information here, I hard coded it. But because that is a static information, but I want to make it dynamic. So that hard coded information that I am supposed to hard code, I am going to substitute it with this particular function. Remember when we are in school, they will give us an example in math. They say x equal 3 and y equals x plus 2. Now you need to substitute the value that they gave you for x. And that is what I'm doing here. I'm going to place it here. And once I do it, if I run it, I can see that indeed it picked the information, but it is adding the @ sign. So we can still be a little bit creative. So that means if I made this guy 7, it will not return the @ sign. If I made this guy 9, it will not return the @ sign. If I make this guy 13, it will not return the @ sign. If I make this guy 10, it will not return the @ sign. So what I can do is just to come here at the end of where I paste. Let me go back so that you see. At the end of where I paste this guy, I can take 1 off. So I can come down here, paste this one. I say -1 to remove that @ sign. So if I run this guy, I can see that I have returned everybody here before the @ sign, and it gives me this information. Pretty cool. But when we used it individually, it makes no sense. But now look at the beauty we're doing. Look at the good work. Look at the awesome job we're using it to do. I just love SQL. SQL is very, very interesting. All right, so let's move on to the next one. The next one said, using the query from the previous question, add a derived column called contact first name. This column should extract the first word from the emergency contact. They wanted me to use this particular query. So I will paste this one here first of all and run it to make sure it is working fine. And now they said I should add a derived column called contact first name, that it should extract the first word from the emergency contact. So to do that, I can now come down here. I already have this column. I don't need this guy in my result. I can come down here. The first thing I will do, I will find the space in this particular column. Yes, the space in this particular column. To do that, I can use the char index. You can see the usefulness of that char index. Can use the char index, open and close the parentheses, and inside of it, I say I'm looking for the position of a space, comma, position of space of what? Emergency contact. I can call this guy as position space emergency, something like that. And if I run it, oh, I do this all the time. I don't know why. If I do this, I can see that the position of this space is 5. Position of this space is 5. Position of this spaces 6, 7, and so on and so forth. So now we're going to use this guy. I can still use a left or a right. Sorry, I take that back, no right. I can either use the left or a substring. So last time I used left, let's use the substring this time. I do substring. I will open and close the parentheses, and I will come down here. My string that I am looking for is the emergency contact, comma. My starting position should always, the one is the same thing because everything will start from the same position. So I will say 1, comma. Now, the next thing is for me to find, for this one, I'm looking for Mary. For this one, I'm looking for Mike, Laura. And if you remember, when we did substring, we counted and get to this particular position, the last, the number of length that we can go from our starting position. So the same thing for this guy, I do not want to hard code this one because this one will change. But in our situation, the first word or the first letter will never change. But the last letter of each word, the positioning will change because all names do not have the same length. So with that, if I come down here, I already have something that check for the space for me. I can copy it. Rather than hard coding a value here, I can substitute it. And now they said I should give it a name called contact first name. I run this information and I can see that I successfully extract the first word from the emergency contact and I receive the exact word that they're looking for, which is the contact first name. So far, so good and so fun. So now let's look for something a little bit spicy, something that is really, really involved by using this question. This question said, using the query from the previous question, add a derived column called email. And they said this column should extract the word the word after the @ sign, but before the period. So they want me to take this guy, so I will take this guy first before I try to tell us what we're looking for. So I will take this one that is giving us that count. We don't need it. And if I run this information now, they said I should return let me copy the email address first. And I can put it here. They said I should extract everything after the @ sign. So everything after the @ sign, but before the period, which is the dot. So but before this guy. So basically, the idea here is that it will extract, if it is a Gmail, it will return a Gmail. Yahoo Mail, it will return a Yahoo Mail. Your company's email address, it will return that particular mail. If it is at Hotmail, it will return the Hotmail. So that is what it is what they're telling us to do. So how do we do this complicating work? It look a little bit complicated, but let's see if we have understood the other ones from here so far. I think it is easy for us to do this. So let's see. The first thing that we want to do is to find again the position of the @ sign. So to do that, we can come down here, we say char index. I open and close the parentheses. The char index position that I am looking for is on the email address. I can call this guy as position underscore position of at. And if I run it, it returns the position of the @ sign all around. Let me try to keep the result so that I don't keep disappearing it. But now the next thing that I need to do now is to use a substring to get at least one half of the records. Maybe to be creative, I can come down here and say, let me do a substring. Let me do a substring. I will open and close a parenthesis. And this substring that I am trying to do, I want to call it, I'll just call it first half. How about that? First half. And now we use this first half to extract, to reduce this particular column so that it gives me a better working condition. So what I will do, the substring is for the email address, comma. Where do I want to start? I want to start from where the @ sign starts. So I'm going to start from this guy. That will be my starting position. So how far do I go? I want to now go up to the remaining length of the email address. So I will call the length function. I'll call the length function of the email address. The length function of the email. Why is it not giving me intelligence? Of the email address. What am I missing? The length function of the email address. I don't know. It's acting up. So what do I? Let me explain what I did. Hold on. Let's run it first so that if you fail, I don't explain something wrong. I think I put something more. So what I did here is that my substring is trying to extract a substring from the email address string. My starting position is where the @ sign started. And my end position is that I want to go up to the remaining length of the email address. So if I start from the @ I want to go all the way out to the remaining. And that is why when I run the code, it returns me this particular guy. Now with this, I have something a little bit friendly to work with. And that thing that I can work with now is that this will be my column of interest. My column of interest that I can begin to work with. So now, from this guy now, I have a dot that I can check for. There are many ways to slice it from this point. From this point in the sense that I can either start from 2 and find the position of this length. Oh, so many ways to find. Now, the more I look at it, the more interesting it becomes. So I can either start from position number 2 and go up to the portion of that length, or I can get the last 4 because the last 4 will always be the same. .com. You know what? Let's not just say the last 4 will always be the same. We can have .org. Yeah, .org. Has there been any 2-letter words before, like .or? Not sure. So let's presume that the last words will always be the same, last 4. I can find this last 4 and replace it. But so many ways. Let's do it one first and make sure one of them work. So we can come down here. I can say I want to find the position of the dot, right? So I can come down here. I say, give me a char index. And the char index that I am looking for is to find the position of the pre-dot, comma. And where am I finding that position of the dot is from the email address. And I can say as position of idiot. And if I run this query now, I can see that I have that position here. So with this, I can say, okay, so this guy said it is 14, but now this 14 is for this one, not for this. To find this guy, we come down here. This is the position it says it is looking for, which is the original email, but that is not what we want. What we want it to look for its position is the one that just starts with at sign. So we can substitute this guy with this one. And if we run it, it tells us that it is 7, and we can see it is all 7, but we're not going to take the 7 of the hard coded. We remember we want to make things dynamic, so we don't want it. So looking at this, we have this email address, we have the position of the period. We can use substring to say start from 2 up to this guy. So now we can come down and we'll copy this guy because this is the position that we're going to be looking for. So we come down to this function. We call our substring. We need to put a comma at the end, the comma at the end, and come down here. We call the substring. We open and close the parentheses, and the substring of where we are looking for is this second half. Remember, this data is the one that we're interested in, not the original one. So we come down to this guy, put a comma. Where do we want to start? We want to start from position number 2, comma, and up to what point do we want to go? To this one that is giving us this particular information. So we can come down here and put it. And if we run the code now, it may not be the complete word, we can begin to work with it. So if we go all the way to the end, we can see that there is an information that is being included. But we indeed started from position number 2. So what this does is that it gave us 7 when we start from here. So when we now started from 2, it moves 2 forward. So to solve this problem, to get our final solution, we can come down to the end and minus that extra 2 that is giving us that extra problem. And if we come down and run it and go all the way to the end, we get this thing called email. And at this point, we can just replace, we can just give it a word that they said call it an email. They say as email. Now, at this point, there are things we don't need in this. The things we don't need this guy, we can take it off. We don't need this one, we can take it off. We also don't need this one, we can take it off. Because now at the end of the day, we have gotten what we're looking for. And now if we run it, this is our solution. We were able to extract the email from this guy. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool, I like it. All right, so let's do the final word and we'll go. But if you have any question about this, please do not forget. Writing this code just gives me joy. It gives me a different type of feeling when I'm writing functions and codes like this. So please drop me a comment, a message, and I'm willing to help you understand this piece, especially. So let's do the last problem on this particular video. Using the query from the previous question, they want us to add a column called email max. This column should max the email address with asterisks, meaning asterisks. I think it means asterisks for the exact number of their domain. So, for example, if we have this guy have 7 names before the @ sign, we need 7 asterisks. This guy has more than 7 names. So this guy has more than 7 characters before the @ sign, so it will have more asterisks. So The asterisk changes per the number of characters before the @ sign. So it becomes dynamic. So that is what they want us to do. So we're going to copy this guy because they said to use this query. I can come down here, paste it, but there are things I do not need. I will take those guys off. And if I run this one, this is what I need. But now I need to add a derived column called maxed email that will max these things according to their change. This one is one of the easiest one, but we're going to do it a baby step like we always do. So the first thing I'm going to do is to find these guys. So from the email address, I'm going to find the letters or the domain before the @ sign. So to do that, if I come down with my baby step idea, let me go all the way to the end and put a comma here. And here, what I want to do first is to find the position of the @ sign. So I'm going to do the char index. I will open and close, and I will give this guy a name called as, I'll say position of @ position of @. And with this, I'm looking for the @ sign on the email address. And if I run it, I will see that it indeed gives me that particular information. Then now I will go to extract that name. I know we did it somewhere at the beginning, which is this guy, but let's just do it again. It doesn't hurt. It's fun to do all this cool stuff. So we can come down here now. We'll use the substring. So here we use the left down here. We use the left to extract that domain, but no, we're going to use a substring here. It doesn't matter. Anyone can work. So if I come down here, I will do substring. I will open and close the parentheses, and the substring that I am looking for, the string that I am looking for is the email address, comma, and then I will take this guy that is giving me the position of the @ sign, and I will paste it here. My starting position is 1, comma that. Now with this, I can now run this guy. I can see at the end that it still have the @ sign. The reason is because it is including the @ sign. So we can be creative and say -1 to remove that particular @ sign. So now the @ sign is gone. Now, the next thing we would do is to create the number of asterisks that matches each one of these letters. So the number of asterisks will change. So I can come down here. I call something that's called replicate. What am I replicating? I am trying to replicate asterisks. So what number of time? To the number of time that this guy is producing. I can come down here and paste this guy. And when I run this guy, it says convert. Let me see. Hold on. The number of string that this guy is producing. Okay, let me check some. Let me check. Let me take this guy off first, and let me run this one and see what the problem is. So this is a good way to troubleshoot yourself. Okay, good. So this guy is not giving me a number. I need to force this guy to be a number. So to do that, I will come down here and count this guy. So let me keep this guy the way it is and put a comma and come down here. I will count it to make it a number. Remember when we did replicate? Replicate is the number you supply. This number, where is the replicate? This number, not letters that we put there. So that's why the SQL blow up at first. So I can come down here. This particular thing is what I'm trying to find the number that it produced. I can come down here. It's that guy here. And I'll put a comma here and another comma. Then I can run it. When I run it, I can see that it gives me, say, this guy is 7, this guy is 9, this guy is 13, this guy is 10. And I want to produce an asterisk that build this information. So I can come down here. Well, you know what? I think here, because of the video, I will leave all these comments, all these things that are commented out so that when you want to play around with this code, you will have something to look up to. So now I can now take this guy off, but the one that I want to count is this, the one that I want to replicate is this particular guy. So I can come down here, copy this, and no, hold on. So I got all the way. You know what? Let me just do this so that I don't confuse the video, but I know what I'm doing. So I'll put a comma and I come down here, say replicate. I will open and close the parentheses. Inside of the replicate, I am trying to replicate the asterisk, comma, to what number of time? To this number of time. This number of time. And why am I having an error? So this, if I copy this one and paste it here. Oh, replace, replicate is what I need. Replicate. Replicate is what I need, not replace. And now when I do that and I run it, I can see that I generated different types of asterisks. Now this asterisk is what I need to use to merge to the @ sign, right? So if I come down here, I still have information. The information that I need to get now is everything after the @ sign. We did something like that too, but we're going to do it separately here again. We're going to build another helper column that will help us get everything after the @ sign. So we can come down here. I can use a substring again. I will open and close the parentheses. The substring of the email, I said email, comma, put comma. Then where my starting position will be the position of the @ sign. So I'll come down here and grab the @ sign and place it right here. Comma. How far do I want to go? I want to go up to the remaining length from my starting position, which is where the @ sign is. I want to go up to the remaining length of the email address. And if I run this guy now and I go all the way to the last, I can see that I have this information. Now is to bring the whole pie together to make it look like this with different type of asterisks. So with that, we have a function called, remember they want to combine string. That function is called the concat. I will open and close the parentheses. Now, when I open and close the parentheses, the thing that I am looking for is the one that is producing this guy and this guy. So the last two functions that we have created. So the guy that is producing the asterisk is this one. I place it here. I do not lift my cursor up where it is blinking. I put a comma. I bring the next one that is producing everything after the @ sign, including the @ and I place it right here. And they said I should call it email maxed. I can come down here and say as email maxed. And if I run this code now, I can see all the way that I have maxed this information. But let me clean the data a little bit because there are things we do not need. We do not need this guy on our final result, but I'll leave it for the video, for the code if you want it. We don't need this guy. 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 Our final solution looks like this. And this is the end of the video. So we derive this one, we derive this one, we derive this one, and derive this one using almost everything that we worked on. And this will be the end of the video. If you have any question about this, please do not hesitate to leave me a comment on the comment section below, and I'm happy to hear and read from you. And please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. We'll be having the next video, which is a substring, and we'll have a lot of things going on. So please stay tuned, hang in there. We have a lot of information coming up. Thank you all, and have a great day and happy Sunday.